Hey guys, it's Brian with Tank It Easy, and I'm here with one of our clients, Mike, a longtime client, and we're in Chicago at his, what do we call this?
Fish Palace. Let's call it Fish Palace, I guess.
It's been a joy to work with Mike and follow his dreams, and I just want to give everyone a chance to meet Mike and kind of take us on a tour of the systems that are here. And maybe we should start with, how did this all begin? What system is your favorite, or your first, I'm sorry, what's your first down here?
So first down here would be the tank that's behind Brian. This was originally a 180 that Tank It Easy moved from our condo to this location. And you know, I was like, I think I can get a bigger tank in here, basically, considerably bigger. So we tore down the 180, and Brian and his team had Titan Aquatic Exhibits make this tank, which is a waterfall system, and that was the first one down here. It's about, I think it's 350 gallons total in the system of the two tanks together, and they're tied through one filtration under the bottom, and it's been going really well.
So one of the fun experiences that we've had, especially on these projects, is the first design, and we kind of make modifications to suit your vision. And so let's just go back a quick step. When did you first get a fish tank?
Yeah, my first fish tank was probably in the early 90s. It was a 10-gallon freshwater tank.
Right.
You know, nothing too fancy. I think I had a red-tailed, one of those little sharks, those little freshwater red-tailed sharks.
Yeah.
It was probably one of my first.
That was it, the first
tropical fish. Yeah.
Ever. Was that in Chicago?
Yeah, in the suburbs.
In the suburbs.
From,
okay.
Yeah. And then my first saltwater tank was several years later, so probably mid-90s. It was a 30-gallon glass traditional saltwater tank with some damselfish and a clonfish in it.
Nice. And so that you got right into salt then?
Yeah, probably a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
After the freshwater tank. Yeah.
Excellent. And if you remember, I mean, did that tank have a skimmer, that kind of thing?
No.
Any lighting? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it had a hang-on back filter.
Right.
And it had like the traditional old fluorescent tube, you know, brown top thing.
Correct.
If you've been in the hobby a long time, you know exactly what this is.
For sure.
I believe it also had, if you remember this, under gravel filter.
For sure.
With the tubes and the bubbles.
Tubes, bubbles, and all that funk kind of gets locked in underneath.
Yep.
Look at that. Would you look at that? Filthy. Absolutely filthy. That's all thanks to you, kid.
That was the first saltwater system.
And I think some of the earlier, you know, reef tanks would be like as simple as just a feather duster.
Yeah.
Or something, you know,
Yeah.
you'd be like, I'm doing it, it's reef.
Yeah.
So technology has definitely come a long way.
Yep.
And that's one of the cool things about this setup and all these setups is you've really crossed over from just, I'd say, to a hobbyist beginner status to
like Bond villain.
Or maybe Bond hero, because all of these tanks are well lit. They have filtration, and we have guided Mike in this process. However, his passion, we've kind of come alongside him. So this isn't a Tank It Easy video of just like, oh, check out all the things that Tank It Easy has done. This is more of a video of like, let's check out what Mike has made. We have maybe assisted in some ways, but everything down here has really been choices that Mike has made, and I think has done a really nice job. And he maintains, we help out from time to time, but a lot of the maintenance that happens down here is right here. And so this man is doing these things and doing it well, and I think it's really cool to share that, not only the projects that we've created with him, but also the success of what is possible when it is your passion, so that our potential customers or people that are watching this that are just into the hobby can get inspired in what is possible through effort, determination, and really showing love for the animals that you have. And I see that in all the tanks, and we strongly suggest doing what Mike did, even if it's not with Tank It Easy, doing that with your local fish store, because they have really good advice. You'll get consistent advice, and they'll get familiar with your tanks. So when Mike comes in on a Friday or a Saturday and talks to Kyle at the shop, one of the things that they're going to be talking about is not going from 0 to 100. They're going into, he already knows Mike's tank. And so I know Mike's tank. Tom knows, everyone on our team understand Mike's different systems, so we don't need a full introduction.
Right.
And that's, I think, a big benefit to success is as a team working together to understand the system. And when you travel, we get familiar with the tanks as we do an install or a consult, or we do a little touch up when it gets around, let's say like the holiday season or something. It becomes a team effort, but again, it's not like right before Christmas you're saying, hey, guys, I want to introduce you to the tank, all these systems, and I got to go, bye-bye.
Yeah. You have no idea anything about what you're doing here, so this is potentially...
Yeah. So the tank behind us here is a reef tank, and it's just stunning. Maybe kind of walk us through the evolution of the tank a little bit.
Yeah, so this tank, a lot of the coral that is in this aquarium started in my 180. It's SPS dominant these days, but at one point there was more soft coral, and the SPS really has started to thrive. So I've kind of pulled back some of the softies, placed them in the side tank, and kind of moved things around over the years. But yeah, some of these colonies now are pushing 10 years old, and they're really the thing I need to do now is start becoming a farmer of this and start learning how to trim things back, and
right.
So that I have enough flow in the system. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm not. This is not a complaint. It's the next step of the evolution for my my sort of personal experience in the hobby is to have this, figure out how to keep this looking this well, even as the coral continues to grow. But yeah, and then you can tell I keep some non-traditional fish in this tank for a reef tank. I've got a couple of butterflies, a ton of angelfish, and in my experience, even though some of these guys aren't really considered to be reef safe, the system works. You got to be willing to lose some coral if you are going to have some of these types of fish in your tank.
And I want to preface that with what Mike has done here is he has actually made sure that he has colonies of coral while breaking some of these quote-unquote rules. Some fish might take a little bit of a nibble at a coral here and there,
Right.
but there's such a you've reached, I would say, almost like critical mass.
Yeah.
With having enough of different parts, different colonies, that if a little bit gets nipped here, very similar to the reef, when a fish likes to take a little bit of a taste, it doesn't kill off the colony and it can regenerate.
Right. Yeah, and you gotta let go of things like polyp extension and whatnot. Like that isn't going to happen if you're going to keep butterflies in your tank. But yeah, that's exactly right. I think that when you can get a couple of core colonies big enough, they can hold off the constant nipping from the various angels and butterflies in the tank. But yeah, and that's basically it. The stuff that's more sensitive is in the side reef, and that is just, those are the corals that tend to get picked on a little bit more. So I've just kind of broken it out. Like that's the really only reef safe fish in there, and in here we can get a little bit crazier with the type of fish we have.
Yeah. So Mike really does appreciate his fish. That's for sure. So we have the reef systems that have the reef, a lot of examples of coral and certain fish that may be on the fringe, definitely for someone who has a newer tank, but as well, anybody watching at home, one of the biggest benefits of a system like this is I want you to keep in mind the size, okay? None of these tanks are nano. None of them are really small. So, there's no need to call the tank police.
Afternoon, son. Hello, brothers.
All these systems are within size for reasonable faction of having a lot of tanks. So I want to pivot just for a second to, I think we call this the Predator.
This is the Predator, yeah. We call it. I call it Predator Reef, though it is not a reef aquarium. It's a Fowler tank at the moment.
For the people at home, what is a Fowler?
Fish only with live rock.
There we go.
And so quite a lot of live rock in here, and fish that. Some of these fish would be fine in a reef system, of course. We've got some yellow tangs, we've got a naso tang, but then also some truly not reef safe fish. And the triggers are a good example, the porcupine fish and whatnot. So this is about a 400-gallon tank. You guys built me about a 100-gallon sump for it.
Correct.
So it's got some pretty serious filtration. I assume you guys got some video of that.
For sure, we're going to show that right now.
And so, definitely, you'll see by looking at the sump system, I'm big into redundancies. I've got 2 big skimmers on this, 2 big return pumps, 2 heaters. That way, the system is, if something goes down, we can keep running without too much trouble.
And we're talking about the predator fish. I mean, everybody in this tank, especially, I can't help but take a look at some of these tanks. They are happy. They are what I like to call fat and happy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of that comes. If you were to feed these fish to that level without the amount of skimming that's happening,
Yeah.
there might be, it's always a give and take.
Yeah.
So by having more skimming
Yeah.
and by having a well-sized filter, you can, I wouldn't say you're not overloading the tank because of those things.
Right.
But if you didn't have the amount of filtration going on, that would kind of push the envelope, and tanks tend to push back.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yes. Yeah. You will know over time when things start to get out of balance. I am not a habitual water change guy. Like, I'm not on a schedule, right? I do water changes anywhere from every 2 weeks to maybe once a month, and it kind of depends on what else is going on in the system and what's going on with my schedule. What I am really particular about, though, changing filter socks and cleaning the skimmers.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the day-to-day work, in my opinion.
Right.
I do run carbon on both tanks, and changing out the filter media, cleaning the filter socks, and making sure the skimmer's clean, personally feels like it buys me a little bit more time between water changes sometimes. And when the algae starts to get a little bit crazier, I know it's probably time to do a full water change with a sand vacuum and everything.
So on this tank, I notice you have a couple castles.
Yes.
Right? So it's
Got
not
4 castles on this tank.
Four
Yeah.
castles on this tank. So with 4 castles, what's the lighting like? What's your lighting cycle? How often? Take me through the schedule on this.
So it's APX 9s, right?
Right.
Are the two big guys, and then I have A360s, just sort of the extra. That's the bonus light. So
the bonus light.
the bonus light, just to give it a little more pop. And the 360s are on for a shorter period of time. I actually don't do with this tank. It's not a reef tank. Basically lights click on at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And then the A360s turn off at 10:30 at night. So there's a slight step down in the evening when the APX 9s come off. But yeah, that's about it. And in the summer, again, fish only. They're not super particular about light levels.
Right.
Actually dial it down a little bit because it helps keep the temperature in check. I don't have chillers on anything.
Right.
And so, one issue is that even in the basement, it stays a little bit cooler down here, but eventually, when it gets really hot out,
Senor Teams.
I have to take some steps to get the tanks to regulate on the temperature front. And since I can't turn that down too much,
Right.
these guys go a little bit darker in the summer, but it does fine.
I know you probably can't tell from the video, but we are in a basement. This is a basement. So this is a very nice finished basement. There is carpet here, which adds another level of impressiveness, I would say, that Mike likes to have it look, which my mother would definitely appreciate. It was always a rule. I couldn't have a tank in my room or in the house if it looked like a science experiment.
Right.
And I would say this looks nothing like a science experiment, and is 4 significant examples. I say 4 because these 2 tanks behind me, it feels like 2 separate systems, but it has that clean, polished look. It has that showroom quality feel, and it is, it's very comfortable. I know it might seem massive, and it is impressive how big it is, but everything is framed. Everything has a very finished, polished look. We built the cabinetry underneath.
Yep.
We did that with Tyler, our master carpenter, our master builder, and we purposely tried to make it a set to kind of match everything. But it isn't necessarily, I think a lot of times people need to realize that, you can't necessarily go to a big box store and just buy a tank like this. This takes a little bit of forward thinking, a little bit of planning, and making some good decisions. But one of the things you do is you don't just buy a tank with what you want it to be. You need to make sure that the dimensions work so you can actually physically move it into the next space.
Yep.
Chicago is, in my opinion, notorious for having twists and turns, and because the lots are what they are,
Right.
You want to maximize the house on the lot that it is, and you don't necessarily have an extra 8 feet to swing sometimes to just swing it out like you would a couch.
Yep.
And to pivot.
Here we go. Pivot. 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 Pivot.
but a lot of times we have to kick things, vertically and work through stairs, and we worked with some great movers over the years, and we have footage of each of these tanks that we will be sharing.
Getting moved in.
Getting moved in.
Quite the project, both times, yeah.
For sure, but I know for this one specifically, you can take measurements till you're blue in the face, but a lot of times when you're trying to go through, like in the back here, there is a type of...
it's a tight turn. It's just a tight turn.
Concrete turn.
Hard corners, like really, really tricky, yeah.
Really, I mean, and acrylic is lighter than glass, that is for sure. However, it is also, very susceptible to, if you catch an edge or whatnot, it's not going to shatter like a glass tank would, but you could scratch it. So I'm happy to say we got all these down here safely with no issues. However, it takes a lot of thought. And sometimes, like for this tank, we built a mock-up. We literally took basically 1x1 boards or sticks and screwed them together to make the tank so that we could do a dry run and kind of roll through everything and just make sure that not only did it fit, but did we have to take doors off? Is there molding that might need to be replaced or removed? That's really important stuff. But also kind of getting that confidence of, because you want to make it go fast. We have running systems, life support systems, a chunk of the ocean in a cube in a residence. But in the wintertime, if we're moving some of these things, which one of them for sure was.
Both of them were in the winter, believe it or
not.
not.
It was, correct.
Yeah.
It was. To do that, you don't want to have the door open for an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah, of course.
So temperature it plays a role. And so to really plan out those things is important. And the other part to really, pay attention to is how are you going to get it in? A lot of times we want to, use our resources, our network of people to be like, hey, I'm going to call, a couple of my buddies over. We're going to drink some beers and we're going to get that tank in the house.
Yeah.
I think that is the absolute wrong way to approach this for several reasons. Not only to hire people to do so because then they are pod committed, no one's canceling last minute, but also I really strongly believe, and this is from moving with experience, having more people than you need, because let's be honest, people get cramps, they get injured, anything can happen. Safety is a priority because at the end of the day, I value a person much more than I do the box. No offense to your tanks and stuff, but if push came to shove, you would want the person to be okay and get the tank. It comes secondary. However, sometimes you don't have the option of being like, time out, let's just stop, because you could have someone underneath a fish tank or holding it and cramping up or whatever the case may be. So that's my public service now.
No, you need pros, and I there's no question, right? I mean, when you guys did my first move, you did a really great job with it, and therefore, I was like, continue to work with you. I'm like, these guys have this, they've got the system down, right? And when we're going this big, I mean, I think my direction to you and Tom was I want the biggest possible tank I can fit in the basement. So we did the measurements. You scoped it out with the fake tank, the mock tank,
right?
And then your moving crew. I mean, I think that the acrylic on this is 800 pounds dry.
Yeah.
Yeah. 800, I mean, you need pros, right? Like, come on, that's just they've got suction cups, they've got the right equipment, yeah. And we did do it. You're right. It was I think it was 19 degrees the morning we moved this thing in. It was cold.
And so that changes a lot. There's a lot of factors with that too, like perspiration.
Not so much in the winter though. I mean, I think the movers were thrilled it was cold.
It was, yes, they definitely were. But and then you got bulky outfit. You got your jacket. You got all these different things. Other thing to keep in mind, especially when working with acrylic, is anything sharp, anything, buttons, belts. There's a lot of things that can scratch your tank, and that's not just for acrylic. That can happen with glass, and it's much more painful because it's really hard to get that.
Can't buff it out. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a really cool experience, and the same thing with cabinetry. There's a lot of ways to support a stand. A lot of times that comes kind of secondary to some folks. Some folks are just looking for the biggest tank possible, but I think when you get an A, in my opinion, it's a tank that looks like art, looks like furniture, and doesn't look like a science project. Nothing wrong with science projects, please. But what I'm getting at is if it looks aesthetically pleasing, it fits in the home and you're more likely to enjoy it. If it's in your standard basement where, it's just concrete and you just want it to be your little science lab, sure, great, have at it.
Yeah.
But that isn't going to necessarily be in a place that you can appreciate it. I feel like this room has a nice TV, a nice sectional, and you can literally sit here and enjoy it as if if you're from Chicago, we have the Shed Aquarium. Down here, you can definitely tell it is clean, everybody is healthy. I don't see a fish down here that has an imperfection, really, which is really cool to see. So as far as, I take this line from my partner, Tom, and he has always said, nothing good in an aquarium happens fast.
That is a true statement. Yeah.
And I think you've taken your time. I think there's a lot of like Hollywood or different ways that people will portray, or there's some TV shows about fish tanks where people will just make it appear like everything
look like that.
in 24 hours, boom.
Yeah.
So some of the footage that we're rolling here is of, some of the footage we're sharing is a collection of videos that we have saved up over the years that it took to make this possible.
Right.
Which I think is really important, because if you go real fast, the worst thing that can happen, well, you're going to hurt livestock, which none of us who love this are into that, right?
That's not why we're doing it. Yeah.
That's not at all. It's to appreciate nature and take these fish out of an environment that I believe lengthens their life expectancy, because they're not going to be munched or eaten in the wild. But also taking the time to go slowly and carefully as to not have to start over and have our lessons be learned the hard way for the livestock. So slow and steady, I really commend you on that. Each of your selections of fish have been timely, and you've really made sure that everyone is healthy along the way. So if you're looking to set up a tank like this, Tank It Easy is available to help you, that is for sure. But to keep in mind that some of our advice, our tips, we're doing that so that we can just address to you, keep in mind that we're trying to help you. Any of your local fish store, when they have to say no, it's not because they don't want to sell you the fish. Hopefully, the sign of a good fish store is that they're telling you no, that this is not a good idea. They're asking you those tough questions, and it's not to be controlling or not to, hopefully not to act like they know more than you. But at the heart of it, that's a sign of a good fish store, because they care about the livestock. We believe in quarantining. We do that at our store. We have a whole hallway dedicated to it for just that purpose of just making sure that fish are not sick, they've traveled or wherever they came from, they've been acclimated, and they're ready to go, and give them the best possible chance of ending up in a display like this and be happy and live good lives. And real quick, we only have a couple minutes left, but I want to ask you, feeding. What is feeding like down here?
Feeding's pretty crazy. I go through a lot. I get all my food from Tank It Easy as well, which I buy what would appear to be a commercial amount of fish food.
Right.
But it's always fun.
Yeah.
And these guys in the Predator tank, they get crazy. I mean, at feeding time, they are really into it.
Sure.
So yeah, no, it's awesome. And just to one thing that you said that I think is important. Look, you guys tell me no sometimes, and I appreciate that. I work with you. You guys understand my systems, as you've already noted. And when you guys say, you know what, you're pushing it a little bit too much, Mike, I will take a step back and say, you know what, I hear you. And because I get excited about it too, and I'm like, oh, there's a new fish. I want to put the fish in my tank.
Right.
And it's like sometimes you got to really work through the progressions of what you're trying to get to. And say, let's wait a little bit longer. Maybe this fish needs another week of quarantine or whatever it is. And I appreciate that input.
We do as well, and I think it's always nice to see that the common bond through all fish keepers and fish enthusiasts is that we do care about the livestock. So livestock's at the center of it. It's not just a business. It's not just art. It's not just that. These are living things and creatures that need care and attention. And to be honest, you could probably attest to this. When you're feeding, they're a lot like a dog or a cat. They're very excited to see you. They think there's food coming, and there is a bond, and it can be, I've said it. Fish are friends. No, fish are they're part of the family eventually. I don't recommend naming your fish, but if you do, I get it, because you love them.
I name all my fish.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. He definitely does name all his fish. I don't recommend that publicly, but Mike, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate your time, of course, to let us see your tanks and share this with everybody else. The best is definitely yet to come. Thanks for watching. If this is your first time watching our video, please think about liking and subscribing to see more awesome content and see more custom tanks that we've created where we get to share that with the rest of the world. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.